Welcome to the Highly Sensitive and Strong podcast. I'm Daphne Lee, a former anxiety sufferer turned holistic anxiety coach, mindfulness teacher, mom, and guide for highly sensitive people. Anxiety was part of my life for as long as I can remember, and as a teenager, I was hospitalized for anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia. Since then, I've learned to transform those challenges into strengths, and now I help people like you calm their nervous systems and live in a way that truly honors you. Each week, I'll share honest conversations, insights, and practical tools to help you heal anxiety in your body and mind so you can thrive as your highly sensitive and strong self. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. Hello, friend. In the last episode, we talked about how sensitivity is not the same as being fragile, and how highly sensitive people can do hard things without abandoning themselves. Today, I want to take that conversation into one of the places that can feel especially tender for some of us, and that is visibility, allowing ourselves to be fully seen, letting more of your true self be known. From the outside, this can sound pretty simple. Share the idea, speak honestly, post the true thing, set the boundary, let people know what you want. Let your work, your voice, your needs, your creativity, or your truth be visible. But inside the body, it may not feel simple at all because for many of us, it can bring up anxiety. For many highly sensitive people, being seen can bring up a lot. Your chest may tighten, your face may get warm, or your stomach may flutter. Your mind might start scanning for every possible response before anything has even happened. What will they think? Will they understand? Will I be judged? Will I regret this? Will this change how people see me? If you recognize this in yourself, I want to say that your fear of being seen doesn't mean you are weak or that you are insecure in some shallow way. It may just mean that visibility touches something tender in your nervous system. It could be old fears of judgment, rejection, being misunderstood, or being told that you're too emotional, too sensitive, too intense, too different, or that you're somehow not enough. And because highly sensitive people often feel things deeply and process experiences very thoroughly, being seen can feel like a lot of input. It's not just the act itself, but it's also the imagined response that we get from others, the possibility of misunderstanding, and just the vulnerability of not knowing how something is going to land. So today's episode is not about forcing yourself to become louder, bolder, or more visible than your nervous system can handle. It's about learning how to let yourself be seen in small, supported, and honest ways. So just a little example, maybe being honest doesn't mean sharing everything with everyone. Maybe it means telling one trusted person how you really feel instead of pretending you're fine when you're not feeling fine. I think it helps to understand visibility as a nervous system stretch. It's not just a mindset issue or a confidence issue, and it's not as simple as deciding to stop caring what other people think, because honestly, most sensitive people do care. We care about our connections and the impact we make. We care about whether our words land well, and that care itself is not the problem. The problem is when our care turns into self-erasure or constant editing, when we edit ourselves so much that our truth disappears, when we stay quiet because we don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, or we over-explain so that we try not to be misunderstood. Some of us hide our creativity because we're afraid it won't be good enough, or we minimize our needs because we don't want to seem difficult. Over time, we can become so careful that we stop being fully present and authentic in our own lives. And that kind of hiding, maybe it feels safe for a while, and sometimes it really is protective. If being seen was not safe in the past, it makes sense that your nervous system learned to be cautious. You might have been criticized when you expressed yourself. Maybe you were teased for being sensitive, or you were told that you were too dramatic or too emotional. You might have learned that being agreeable kept the peace in your family, or staying small helped you avoid conflict. It could have been that your sensitivity was misunderstood often enough that you began hiding it before anyone else could judge it. So if any of that sounds familiar to you, there's no shame in it. Hiding is often a protective strategy. The nervous system says, if I stay small, maybe I'll stay safe. And for a time, that may have helped. But eventually, the same protection that helped us avoid pain can also keep us from being truly known or from being true to ourselves. It can keep us from sharing our voice, letting people love and see the real us, creating the work in the world that we feel like we're meant to create, and living with the kind of honesty our deeper self is quietly asking for. So the question becomes, how do I let myself be seen without overwhelming my nervous system? How do I practice visibility in a way that feels supported, not forced? Now, visibility anxiety can show up in a variety of subtle ways. For some of us, it looks like shrinking. We stay quiet when we have something meaningful to say. We hold back. Maybe it's our writing, our art, our opinion, our preferences, or our needs. We let someone misunderstand us because correcting them feels too exposed. I did this regularly when I was a kid, and when someone would ask me my name, I was so shy and quiet that when they would repeat it back to me as Stephanie instead of Daphne, I wouldn't correct them. So sometimes we hold back because we tell ourselves it's not that important, or we don't want to make a big deal out of it, or in some cases, we don't say things because we think somebody else probably knows better. For other people, visibility anxiety can show up as over editing. Maybe you write a message and then you rewrite it 10 times, or you have a conversation in your head for days before saying anything out loud, and you try to remove every possible misunderstanding or opening for criticism. And of course, sometimes editing is a thoughtful practice. Sometimes it's very wise for us to pause before speaking. But over editing often comes from fear, not clarity. And it's the nervous system trying to make our visibility risk free. Another way that visibility anxiety can show up is through over explaining ourselves, which I think many sensitive people know very well. You might say no, but then you explain for 5 more minutes about why you need to say no. You might express a need, but then reassure the people around you that it's okay if they can't meet it. Or you try to make your truth so gentle or so carefully wrapped that no one could possibly be upset with you. Over explaining is often an attempt to protect our connections with others. And it's the way that the nervous system says, please understand me, please don't be upset with me, and ultimately Please don't leave. But sometimes the more we over explain, the farther we get from our own center and our own truth, to where we're no longer simply telling the truth. Instead, we're trying to manage how that truth is being received. And that is exhausting. One of the hardest parts of visibility is that we don't get to control how anyone else responds. We can be thoughtful, clear, we can speak from integrity and choose our words with care, but we cannot guarantee that everyone's going to understand us or that no one else will judge us. We can't guarantee that our creativity will be received how we hoped it would, or that our boundary will make everyone comfortable. We can't guarantee that honesty is going to lead to harmony. And this is where the deeper work begins. Being seen asks us to step into a little bit of not knowing. We don't know how things will land or that others will approve. And for an anxious or highly sensitive nervous system, that uncertainty can feel incredibly vulnerable. So maybe the mind tries to solve everything ahead of time. We might rehearse all the possible responses. We might rewrite our messages. We might imagine criticism before it ever happens. And we might tell ourselves to stay quiet until we feel certain that it's safe. But often that certainty never comes. And if we wait until visibility feels completely safe, we might spend our whole lives waiting. This doesn't mean we should throw ourselves into too much exposure before we're ready, but it means that we can learn how to practice allowing ourselves to be really visible in supported ways. So, for example, let's say you want to share something more honestly. Maybe you want to tell a friend how you really feel, or that you want to set a boundary that you've been avoiding. There's a big difference between forcing yourself to do the biggest, scariest version of that all at once and choosing a small enough step that your nervous system can stay grounded. That is the difference between exposure and supported visibility. Exposure is when we push ourselves into things too quickly, maybe too publicly, or without enough support. And maybe it looks brave from the outside, but inside the body, it can push you into overwhelm. It can feel like it's just too much and that it causes you to feel too ungrounded. For highly sensitive people, that kind of exposure can reinforce the belief that visibility is unsafe. Supported visibility is different from that. It means that we stretch ourselves, but we stay connected to ourselves. And we do this by choosing a step that's meaningful but workable. We allow ourselves to prepare, we get grounded, we tell the truth in a way that the nervous system can stay with us. In this, we allow visibility to be a practice. That might look like sharing an honest thought with one safe person before sharing it more widely. Or maybe we let ourselves post something and then give ourselves permission not to check the responses right away and not to put too much weight on other people's opinions. It could be saying, I need a little time to think about that instead of automatically saying yes, or letting someone know what you prefer, even if part of you worries that it could be inconvenient. I know that for myself, regularly sharing practices on Insight Timer where people can give you direct feedback on how it was for them, I have to really practice reminding myself that what I share is not going to be for everyone. And it's okay if someone does a practice and then gets back to me and says, this didn't work for me. That happened actually just this morning. And I had that immediate, oh, I did it wrong and that it wasn't good enough. And then I paused and I allowed myself to take a breath and I got grounded and I reminded myself that it is absolutely okay that what I offer isn't for everyone. And I know that when I do other people's practices that there are plenty of people that I try things that they offer and it's not for me. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that what they are offering isn't worthwhile and isn't full of great value. The same is true when people are judging the work that I put out in the world. So, supported visibility asks, what support helps me stay connected to myself? How can I let myself be seen without turning this into a test of my worth? And that really matters because visibility is not a verdict, it's a practice. I think of this often in my own life because so much of my work now requires that I be visible, whether that's teaching within my membership, speaking into a microphone and being recorded, sharing my vulnerable personal stories, building a business that's been around something that's really tender but really meaningful in my own life. Letting people hear my voice and my perspective and my experiences and the practices that have supported me. And even after many years of teaching now, being visible still feels vulnerable to me. It's not always in the same way that it once was, but there's still that moment before sharing something honest where I can feel really exposed, or that moment when someone gives their opinion that it can feel really scary. And this is where those old questions still come up of, is this going to be judged? Is this going to be helpful? And what I've learned over time is that courage doesn't mean that those fears disappear. Courage often means that I don't let those fears be the only voice in the room. I can notice the fear and I can listen for wisdom. I can prepare ahead of time. I can get grounded. And I can ask if this is something that's aligned with my values and then just take the next small step. This has changed the way I think about visibility. It's not about becoming someone who never feels afraid to be seen. It's about becoming someone who can stay kind to herself while allowing herself to be seen, where I can let a little more truth, a little more care and creativity to come forward without abandoning myself in the process. And I want that for you too. And not because everyone needs to be more visible in some big public way. Not everyone is called to a stage, a microphone, or a public platform. Visibility might be quieter for you. It might mean telling the truth, letting your vulnerabilities be known in a friendship, letting your preferences matter in your relationship, saying no without apologizing, allowing yourself to ask for support, or letting your sensitivity be part of the conversation instead of something you need to hide. Small visibility counts. You do not have to become louder to become more honest and more visible with your needs. And I want to pause here for a moment because this is exactly the kind of work we practice inside of Rooted Resilience. It's my monthly membership for highly sensitive people who want nervous system support, who want to build their emotional resilience, and to have a set of practical tools that can be used in daily life. Inside the membership, we practice these ideas in grounded, practical ways: how to notice when your nervous system is bracing, how to stretch without overwhelming yourself, and I mean like stretch outside your comfort zone, how to come back to the body before a hard conversation, or how to support yourself when you want to be more honest or more expressive. One of my newest members recently told me she was surprised by the amount of value inside the membership and that the practices are directly applicable in her daily life because they've given her tools to strengthen her overall resilience and how to get through those difficult moments. And this is really the heart of what we do in Rooted Resilience. It's a place to practice coming back to yourself again and again, so support becomes something you can reach for in the middle of your everyday life. Right now, new members can begin their first month for just $7, so you have the opportunity to explore the practice library, attend the live sessions, or listen to the replays and see how it works for you. I'll include the link in the show notes. And now let's come back to how we can begin practicing visibility in small, supported ways. When I talk about visibility, I'm not usually talking about huge leaps. I'm much more interested in micro risks. They're the small, honest moments where you let yourself be just a little bit more real, a little more authentic and true to yourself. For highly sensitive people, small is not meaningless. A small step can be a very real nervous system stretch. So, a micro risk might be saying, actually, I would prefer something different. Or, I need a little time to think before I answer. It could be saying, I have something I want to share. Or, I need support. Or, I'm not available for that. So, there's a lot of different situations where we can practice taking those micro risks with being really true to ourselves and allowing our true selves to be seen. These may sound simple, but for a sensitive nervous system that learned to stay safe by pleasing, hiding our true feelings, or staying agreeable, these moments can be deeply courageous. You might feel your heartbeat faster, or you might feel the heat come into your face. You might find yourself wanting to explain, soften, or take something back right after you've said it. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means that your nervous system is stretching. And so, if it feels workable, if you still have access to taking a deep breath or making a choice, if you can stay connected to yourself, then you may be in your capacity zone, which is that place where growth becomes possible with enough support. So the practice is not to force yourself into big acts of visibility. It's to choose one small, honest step and then support yourself through it. Before the step, you might ask what you need in order to feel supported. During the step, you might feel your feet or take a slow breath or place a comforting hand on your body. And then afterward, you might give yourself time to recover and remind yourself, I did something brave. I let myself be seen in a small but meaningful way, and I don't have to evaluate myself through everyone else's response. And the truth is that visibility often brings up a fear of judgment. This is human. Judgment can feel really intense because of how deeply we process things as highly sensitive people. We might replay things, we might feel it deeply in the body. We might turn one person's reaction into a much larger story about whether we are safe, accepted, loved, or allowed to be ourselves. So when fear of judgment appears, we don't want to shame it. We can simply notice this is fear, this is protection coming up, and this is the part of me that wants to feel safe. And then we can ask a deeper question. Is this fear trying to protect me from a real danger, or is it trying to protect me from vulnerability? Those are not always easy to separate, but it does matter. Sometimes the fear is wise. Sometimes we really aren't safe enough to be fully vulnerable. Some people have not earned access to our tenderest truths. Some environments are not supportive enough for our full expression, and so our discernment matters. But sometimes the fear that's coming up is an old fear. It might be reacting to a past version of our life, and now it's trying to keep us small because small once felt safer. In those moments, we can thank the protection without letting it make every decision. We can say, I understand why you're here. Thank you for trying to protect me. And I'm going to take this small supported step because I'm allowed to be more fully here. So you might just gently ask yourself, where in my life have I been hiding a little bit? Maybe it's been in a relationship, or it's part of your creative life or your work, or the way you express your needs. It might be the way you feel like you need to keep your sensitivity private because you're afraid it'll be misunderstood. Just notice what comes up when you consider where you've maybe been hiding a little in your life. And you might reflect on, what are you protecting yourself from? Maybe it's judgment, rejection, disappointment, being misunderstood, or feeling too exposed. What am I protecting myself from? And then you might notice, is there one small supported way I could let myself be seen a little bit more? Doesn't have to be a huge leap or a performance, but just one small, honest step. Could be setting a boundary, sharing a preference, or allowing yourself a moment of not over explaining. And then ask yourself, what would help my nervous system feel more supported? And this could be before, during, and after that small step that you take. Maybe you need to take a few breaths or go for a walk. You might need more recovery time afterward. And remember, you're not trying to force visibility. You're practice staying with yourself as you let a little more truth come forward. So you might say to yourself, I can express myself without overwhelming myself. I can let my truth have a little more room. So this is how visibility becomes a practice. It's just those small moments of honest expression. You might let yourself answer the question more truthfully, or let your friend know what you actually prefer. You might pause before automatically apologizing or saying, I need a little more time. When you do these things, your nervous system may respond. It may feel alert, uncertain. It might wonder what's going to happen next. And that just means you're practicing something new. So allow yourself to go slowly. Stay connected to the body. Choose supportive people when you can. And let that visibility happen in doses that your nervous system can integrate. And remember that the goal is not to be seen by everyone. It's just to not disappear from yourself. I want to leave you with saying that if you have learned to hide, to shrink, to over edit or over explain, there's probably a reason. And there's no shame in the ways that you've tried to protect yourself. But protection does not have to become a life sentence. You are allowed to let more of yourself be known. You're allowed to have preferences, to express your needs. You're allowed to speak honestly and to be sensitive and still take up space. You don't have to make yourself smaller, and you don't have to become fearless in order to be brave. You can practice being seen in small, supported ways. One honest sentence, one creative share, one clear boundary. It's just letting your real self stay in the room. If this episode resonated with you, I hope you'll save it and come back when you're practicing the courage to be seen. And if you know another highly sensitive person who needs the reminder that they do not have to hide their true self, I hope you'll share it with them. Take good care of yourself. You are sensitive, you are strong, and you are deeply worthy. I'll see you next time.